And yeah, with that, I think we should just jump right into things. And so, um, really, really excited to have Brendan Short as our guest debater along with myself here. Brendan was previously at Apollo and then previously founded this company called Groundswell and writes for The Signal, which is my favorite newsletter out there, and or Substack out there. And I really encourage everyone to go sign up for it. And we'll get some more plugs for Brendan at the end here. But Brendan, before jumping into the juicy stuff, do you want to kind of give a little primer on yourself for a minute or two, and we can jump into the debate?
Yeah, sounds good. And thank you for having me. I appreciate the kind words, Kevin. It means a lot coming from you. I would just echo that. I think when I see when we've chatted and when I see you posting things, I'm 99% of the time nodding my
I
head
know, so not much of a debate here.
vigorously.
We're probably just gonna like share the same opinions on things, but we'll get into some fun topics. Yeah, yeah,
We'll find the areas we disagree on. I think yeah, we'll get into it, but I think the kind of the AI SDR thing is, it's more nuanced, and there's not kind of a yes or no answer. So I'm excited to jam on this with you. Yeah, like you said, I was at Apollo previously, and started a company called Groundswell, which is focused on. We started with like kind of product usage signals, so in the PLG space, and then we were expanding to other signals. Outside of that, this was a few years ago now. I also, interestingly, my first company was a company that I started was a company called Hexa, which was email personalization at scale. And we got acquired by a venture-backed company that was kind of doing a outsourced sales development. So it's kind of like in hindsight, it was definitely just like an AI SDR back in 2017 or something like that. And I see very similar problems to today with kind of the AI SDRs. Although obviously LLMs are magical and much more powerful than they were, whatever that was 8 years ago. I think there's a lot of really interesting technology, and that's obviously a very big tailwind. Yeah, I'm writing the signal and doing a little consulting. I would say that the kind of the through line for me right now is like I'm trying to figure out what is the future go-to-market playbook. I think we are at like a very real inflection point where there's just a bunch of different things happening at once, and I don't know. I know that the old playbook doesn't work like it used to, and I think that there's a new playbook that's starting to emerge, but I truly think we're very early on that. And so that's what I'm trying to explore in the signal is honestly just like my public exploration into what is actually working. How do you actually deploy AI in go-to-market? What does a modern go-to-market tech stack and everything that comes with that look like? What are the roles? I think a lot of things are in
yeah.
flux right now. So I'm excited to kind of jam on some of that stuff with you today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly like part of the fun where it's like, at least there is a market, at least there's like a lot of things happening. And, part of the fun is like building as we go and trying to figure out as we go along. And yeah, I certainly like look to you for some guidance there. And because, we're building it along with the rest of the market at Common Room too. So cool. Awesome stuff. I'm actually going to like stop sharing the so people can see our faces in a larger way as we have this dialogue. And okay, so first thing I wanted to get at is something that is very top of mind today specifically, and it's addressing the elephant in the room, which is the whole 11x debacle. So I don't know, Brendan, I don't know if you want to just share your take on that. I mean, I have my own take, but wanted to pass the torch to you to see if like, quick takes from Brendan on this thing that is less than 24 hours in the making.
Yeah, obviously, I don't know the nuance beyond kind of the TechCrunch article and some chatter on LinkedIn. I would say that look, this is my take on AI SDRs at kind of the highest level. If you can buy something for X amount of dollars per month, and it gives you 2x those dollars at the end of the month in terms of ROI, like that's a very compelling pitch, right? If I can say, hey, you give me 5K and I'll give you 10 meetings, like you can do that math very quickly and say, okay, cool. Does it make sense? What is my typical cost of acquisition? What is my deal size? And like in 15 seconds, you can back into that math. And so as it relates to an AI SDR, this is kind of like, it's going to do everything for you. It's going to autonomously book meetings on your behalf. and the like fully automated version of an AI SDR. We'll call it like autopilot versus copilot, or augmentation. That full autonomous AI SDR. I just think like if it's same thing with like intent data. Like if this thing was so good that you could put in 5K at the beginning of the month and get 10K at the end of the month, people would be shoveling all of their money into these things, and every company in the world would be already using them. And so obviously they're not like completely performing at that level where I can put in 5K and get out 10K. Why is that not the case? And will that become the case eventually? I think are the more interesting questions. But like very obviously, it's like I don't hear people raving about their AI SDR experience publicly. And so I think it's like it's probably more nuanced than that. But at the highest level, I think it's like that's kind of where it's at. And so it's like, these companies are ripping because you can position that as like, hey, give us 5K, we'll give you 10K out. But the reality is you have to do this in a really smart way. And you have to build products in a way that like it's really difficult, as you well know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is, and to like full disclosure, like we genuinely used 11x and tried it as a product. And I think the product is like, really sound, really solid. And I totally believe in the space. I would just say that the promise makes sense. And like maybe AI, maybe we're just not quite there yet, where it's like, like just like you said, dollar in, dollar out. I can augment or even replace my SDR team. Great at conceptual level. Like this gets our cost per headcount down and our team much more efficient. If this thing costs $3,000 a month and it's generating, $2 million in pipeline, or $200,000 in pipeline, or whatever the unit economics to work out, great. But I think in practice, it just wasn't quite there yet. And I wanted to share some of the learnings that I've found as a user of the product, because it also applies to like, how to do things the right way going forward. And so some of the things that I screwed up on personally, it's like I'm as a user of the product, it was a user error in a lot of ways, and not actually the product itself. The product is just doing deterministic things, maybe not the LLM side of it so much, but like it's finding prospects, it's putting them in sequence, and it's generating an AI personalized message for them. The thing that I found was not was a mistake on my end, is I was like, okay, this is a risk. I'm not gonna put my high profile, high fit prospects into this. So I'm gonna target the bottom end of the market, and I'm gonna YOLO it a little bit to see if it works. And then the other thing is I was just prompting it to death, because I don't think AI, like the LMs, got to a point where it's like, oh, this is doing reasoning the right way, to where it's like this is a good outbound message to send. And so I ended up just writing it. So, and I'm also very particular about my voice, and how the copy that I write comes off. And so essentially, I just prompted it so that it pretty much was just like a templated outbound email. So it's like, if you're doing things that way, then like why not just use your sequencer and like A/B test instead? The other thing, which we'll get into more too, is that the data that it's personalizing off of is essentially just doing like a Google search for that person, and then looking at their LinkedIn profile or scraping whatever data is public, and then saying like, okay, like let's infer some things about this, versus like actually getting into meaningful signals or meaningful data that you know about that account. And so I feel like I think I touched on most of the areas why, you know, that didn't work. And it was an approach that like mostly could have been fixed on my end, versus like the product being faulty or anything like that. It's not like the product is broken. I think it's the approach to it is somewhat broken.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
that's spot on. By the way, just to add to that, like I mentioned before, the first company that I started was acquired by a outsourced sales development company. It was basically like a services company trying to build products, so trying to automate sales development. There were a few big lessons from that experience. One of the biggest ones was exactly what you're talking about, which is, well, a couple things, but oftentimes we would get a customer and we'd be like, okay, cool, which accounts are we going after? And they'd say, hey, you can go after these 5,000 accounts. And then I'd say, okay, cool, why these 5,000? And they're like, well, the other 30,000 in our CRM are owned accounts for our 8 AEs. And so I go, okay, cool, why are those owned accounts and these are owned by marketing? They're like, well, the owned accounts are the ones that are tier 1 and these are tier 2 or 3 or whatever. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
seems like we're at a disadvantage out of the gates here, right? So it sounds like that's kind of one of the things that you ran into. Then you run into like the normal ROE stuff. This is all like solvable. So rules of engagement, meaning don't reach out to customers on accident. Don't reach out to open opportunities on accident. Don't reach out to a deal that was closed losted last month on accident and reach out cold. Like there's context. Again, I think this is where we're just early, but this is a very solvable thing technically, as far as I can understand it as a non-technical person, I should say. I think the other thing is, again, I think we're early here, but the commoditized data. I think there's like a bunch of commoditized data today that exists, which is like your title or your first name. 10 years ago, you could say, hi, Kevin, see you're a VP of marketing. And like you would have received that email, maybe not you, but many people would receive that email and be like, ah, Brendan personalized that email. He actually hand wrote that for me. Now we have kind of the layer 2 of that, which is like how much funding, number of employees. Then we have the layer 3, which is, I think, where it gets the most interesting. This is kind of this concept of micro campaigns, which just don't, to my understanding, don't yet exist in an AI SDR. I think they will. That's the most interesting data. It's the data that's only relevant for me, and like other companies don't find that data relevant. Even my own competitor may not find this data as relevant. This is where I talk a lot about like, you want to come up with like thoughtful and creative experiments, and that's where the alpha lives. And generative AI is very good at finding that on your behalf, so you don't have to manually search an hour to find interesting information about a company or person you're reaching out to. And again, I think that's just like, it's too nuanced for these kind of off-the-shelf AI SDRs, but I think that these are starting to get there. And yeah, one last thing I'll say is like, I definitely don't think all AI SDRs are bad. In fact, I think like for a low ACV, large TAM market, that level of like automation can be very, very effective. I've seen that firsthand.
Yeah. I was gonna get into this later, but we might as well get into it now, where there's kind of like, I've in my point of view, there's like this spectrum of like where you're tolerable, or where you'll tolerate like using an AI SDR or not. And like if you have, like you said, like your I mean, there's like this growth concept of like fishing with spears versus fishing with nets. And if you're in like fishing with nets bucket, it's like you can't possibly, the unit economics first don't work out, but then you can't possibly like hire and reach enough people. You can't hire enough SDRs and like reach enough people in your total addressable market. And so in those situations at the lower end of the market, maybe an AI SDR just getting the word out there and almost being like a brand on your behalf, like is a viable strategy. Whereas like if you're spear fishing, going after those really good accounts, I think it's more like augmented, like AI augmented, where like we're going to surface up these micro campaigns. We're going to surface up these signals, or like help you drafting it from like 0 to 1, or but not actually like, but the human's going to review the last mile. And so that's more of like the middle of the market. And then even at the other end of the market, like the enterprise side of the market, they're not even like trying to get net new acquisition. They're really just like, take all of the data that we have about our product and about like our internal systems and all this stuff, and then just like give us what we know about our existing customers so that we can like, reach out to them. So there's like lots of different areas of the spectrum. And like people always are like, are AI SDRs good or not? Like, should we use them or not? And I'm like, it depends on where you land on the spectrum and your strategy and all these other things. So it's like, it's not a spicy take, but it's like that it depends, but it really truly does, in my opinion.
Totally. Even at a single company, when I was at Zoom Video, I was doing operations and enablement for the BDR org there. There's 100 BDRs supporting about 1,600 AEs, I think. At Zoom, like Zoom Video, they have many, many free users. They have many, many very low contract value customers. And it doesn't make sense to have a BDR who's making, whatever, 80, 90, 150K to go outbound into a company that has the most potential is to pay Zoom $2,000 a year. That doesn't just, the math just doesn't make sense. So in that case, it's like, okay, can you automate a lot of this stuff with something that looks like or is an AI SDR for your SMB segment? And then for mid-market or enterprise, then you have a team of SDRs that own, 40 accounts each. You definitely don't want just kind of an automated outreach to those 40 strategic enterprise accounts. So even within a company, it could be nuanced. It could be, okay, one segment, maybe it makes sense to use it and deploy it. Another segment, maybe it doesn't. So I do think I think it has to be nuanced. And I think, yeah, I think not enough people are thinking about like also the spectrum of like how automated, like it's not binary. I think that's the other like slice of this is, um, as an example, if you go and let's say a company goes and tiers 20,000 accounts in their CRM or 20,000 people, right? Tier one, tier two, tier three, very simply. There's a world where you would want tier ones to be put into a sequence from an SDR or an AE where it's an email. They're going to review the draft that was created, hopefully mentioning a signal or that was why that person was put into that sequence to begin with, why that lead was selected. They're reviewing that email. They're saying, yeah, this looks good, send, or I'm going to tweak something and then send. They're also then connecting on LinkedIn with the prospect. They're doing calls into that prospect. They're multi-threading. Maybe they're going to go try to find a warm intro. Maybe they're going to do some more research or whatever. There's like manual stuff. And then the tier twos or the tier threes, they get put into a sequence on behalf of that same SDR or same AE, but it's just a 3-touch email sequence fully automated. So I think you have to, and like, is that first one an AI SDR? Like, it's kind of like I'd say like on the spectrum, it sort of is. It's not 100% autonomous, but it's kind of this co-pilot thing. And so I think that's the other nuance here is like, uh, there's very few companies I think where a full-on autonomous AI SDR makes sense. But also I'd say there's very few companies where like some level of augmentation using something like an AI SDR or an AI co-pilot doesn't make sense. I think basically every company should be using something like that.
We have a lot of audience questions already that we might want to pull in a second, but first I wanted to just go back to kind of like, okay, we know that the market's being disrupted, like that's why there's so much hype here. And I know, Brendan, you have a lot of both experience and also takes on, what was broken of before, maybe like the predictable revenue playbook. And I think it might be helpful for the group here to just understand like, okay, why is this such a thing? Like, why is there so much hype around this? And like, what's being disrupted from the past?
Yeah, I'll try to give a quick answer here, but I think it's very clear to me. I by no means have the answer on what the new playbook is and have that figured out. Again, I think like for instance, the AI use cases, I would say, I mean, I have no idea, but like to illustrate the point, I think we probably know like 5% of the use cases of AI in go-to-market. And in a few
Yeah.
years, we'll get to like 80 or 90%. I think we're very, very early. And so I don't know the new playbook. What I do feel very confidently about is the old playbook doesn't work like it used to. You can't just hire a ton of SDRs, give them a playbook, buy a database, buy a sequencer, and say, go, add 50 to 100 people a day. It just doesn't work like it used to for many reasons. Deliverability, competition is higher than ever before because of the cost of building software is lower than ever before. Attention is more scarce than ever before. I think there's like some actual like kind of real headwinds there that make it very difficult for that old playbook to work like it used to in kind of the ZERP era. And so, yeah, I'll pause there and let you react to that or add anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I very much agree. It's just like there's like so much, so much people trying to get attention, and like one concept in marketing is being able to pattern disrupt. So if you're scrolling the feed, or if you're like going through your inbox, like what is actually going to stand out? And because there's so much noise, and even like I would say that AI SDRs actually do like a pretty good job of replicating that predictable revenue playbook, and even better because it's got one-to-one personalization. But that in this day and age is just not good enough because because there's so much noise and people have already figured out how to make that playbook work. So in order to like get that pattern disrupt and stand out, you really need to have a small margin of error where you're like touching on a really strong pain points, and you have the anecdote to that pain point, or something that stands out. And maybe getting multi-channel, like you were saying before, is another way of doing that, because it's a LinkedIn DM, it's a video, it's calling someone. Like calls are really big right now because people answer their phone or get a text or whatever, and like that is like dialing for dollars is back in vogue. So I really think like the bar is just a lot higher now, and that's why part of the reason why we're seeing like this playbook, this old predictable revenue model playbook applied with like AI wrapper on top of it is just like not effective. Yeah.
I think so. There's a fancy word called skeuomorphic design, which is like basically this concept of like something. I think I'm explaining this right. I'm not smart enough to fully understand it probably, but like basically this idea of like when a new technology comes out, there are like net new use cases that emerge. And I think that if we think about like the last 10 years of the predictable playbook, predictable revenue playbook, adding like sprinkling some AI onto it and automation, like, does it make it better? Yeah, makes it 20 or 30% better or whatever. It doesn't make it 10x better. And I think that's the thing that at least I'm personally looking for, is that, like, to me, that's the alpha. That's the thing that's like, okay, what is possible today, specifically with AI, generative AI, that was not possible 2 years ago? And I think there are certain things that fall into that category. And so, having a sequencer with a line of personalization generated by AI, sure, that's better than a sequencer without that, but that makes it 20% better. I don't think that is a 10x or a 100x return on the piece of technology that exists now. So I think that's the other thing that I'm kind of trying to think through, is like, what are the use cases that are 10x better, as opposed to like, let's just do this kind of spray and pray thing that's like 20% better, but now we can do, instead of 50 emails a day, we can do 5,000 emails a day. And like, we're basically treating an email as like a digital ad at that point. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is an ad. It's an ad in somebody's inbox, and they're going to swipe it away in 3 seconds, but it's an ad impression, in the same
Yeah.
way that like if they're in my LinkedIn or Facebook feed, it's like an ad impression. And like,
It,
I think that's fine to call it that, but like that that's not what it used to do. It used to get people to spend 30 minutes with you.
Yeah, that to me, that is just like such marketing thinking applied to everything. It's like this is the law of shitty click-throughs happening in front of our faces, where display ads used to work, like Google search ads used to work, and now it's like, oh, we've ruined this so much and ruined the user experience so much that we're just counting it up as like, oh, this is an impression, like this is chalked up to brand, and like we're not actually thinking about like what is an effective approach to getting someone to take an action. But at the same time, I'm like, well, maybe that is a good way to get your brand in front of someone if people have ad blockers and all this stuff too. So I don't know. I still get the marketer in me is like, oh, maybe this is actually a good play. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think it's like, yeah, it's better than nothing. But I think, yeah, I think if it's
Which
for
is
the
like
right,
moving the goalposts a little bit is what irks me. It's like, oh, this wasn't working, and so therefore, like, let's move the goalpost and say like we're doing it for this reason now instead of like what the actual reason we set it up to do.
that's right. That's
Uh,
exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right, I think.
Okay,
Um,
last thing before I can't believe it's already like almost half an hour in. Last thing before jumping to some audience questions. There is a lot of criticism in the market of like there's no referenceable case studies. There's no like people who are sticking their neck out and saying that they're doing this. Like that was actually part of that TechCrunch article today or yesterday on 11x. And so I know that you are hands-on with a lot of practitioners and a lot of companies. And I wonder if you could like share some of the stuff that you're doing with AI or that is real. And hopefully it's not putting you on the spot too much. And if not, I can share like what we're doing and what our customers are seeing too.
yeah, I'll share a couple things. I think also, just on the first point, the I'm curious your take on this actually, but like the way I see AI SDRs, I think many people are obviously using an AI SDR to some degree of success. I would say my read on it in this current moment is it is cheaper than an SDR, but it is less effective than a human SDR. That's probably like the simplest summary of kind of an AI SDR today. It's like, this thing doesn't sleep, but it's email only, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't sleep. It can do a bunch of research. It's not going to like miss anything in research like a human might. It kind of misses some context. It misses some nuance. So there's just kind of pros and cons. But like, is it cheaper than $90,000 a year SDR, I don't know, whatever kind of in the US an SDR, whatever the comp is, 150K, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's cheaper,
90K
but I
OT.
think,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, 90K OT, right. But or 70K or whatever, like,
Yeah.
I think it's cheaper, but it's just less effective. That's how I would probably say in this current moment it is. But I'm curious your
Yeah.
take real quick.
By all means, like if people, there's a question about, should founders take this approach versus even like hiring? I think
Yeah,
that's what the question in the chat was. But I'm now confused because I'm spotlighted, but it's okay. My thought on that is like if you're starting from scratch and you're just planning to run the predictable revenue playbook anyway, then like sure, why hire a human task force? It's like a lot more expensive, and it's going to be better than this predictable revenue playbook for the past. The thing is just like that's not effective. Like that's not good enough, as we were talking about before. So it might get the word out, but like if you're expecting to get replies and meetings booked and pipeline out of it, I think you have to kind of curb your expectations a bit there. And then also I would say like it's maybe worth experimentation, versus hiring someone, because maybe it does work. Like I'm a N of one, like a lot of people out there are N of one, and it didn't work for them. Maybe they didn't put in the right inputs to say like how they talk about their value prop and the people and like who they're targeting or whatever. Like maybe those inputs are wrong, and therefore like the AI SDR would have worked if they got some of those other things up front. So it's not to say that it's not worth experimenting with. I think it's more just like thinking through like to me it comes down to empathy too. It's like thinking through all the other end of like if someone who's my target prospect gets this message, like if I put myself in their shoes, would I react to it? Am I going to take action there? And if the answer is yes, and it's generated by an AI ASDR or a human, like who cares? Like that's what you need to get to.
totally. I would also say maybe this is like sort of counter to what you just said, but I think it's a good way to do it. Like this is a test, and like it's a very low risk test. You're going to spend a X amount of money for the next 3 months and see if you get Y amount of meetings. So it's a very like kind of predictable thing. Somebody else asked like, yeah, to the question of the founder-led sales. I think I also to some degree think an AI SDR is really good at like automating and scaling a process that works. So I think like if you don't have product market fit, if you're a founder that doesn't yet have product market fit, and like you
Mm-hmm.
can't manually reach out to 10 people a day and book a few meetings a week off of 50 off of like 50 emails, like I just don't think you have product market fit. You don't even have message market fit. Like you don't have case studies to reference. You don't have quantifiable results to tell people about. Probably don't have like an offer yet to be able to give value in that outreach. And so like there's nothing to scale yet. You don't have product market fit, so you can't scale it. And AI SDR is really good at scaling something that's already working, but you're doing it
Mm-hmm.
manually and it takes too much time. So that's maybe like the counter as
Yeah.
well, as I would think about it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's more like, yeah, if you're a founder, you got to be in founder mode. I know that has negative connotations now, but
Yeah.
be in founder mode, and that means like going crazy on like getting, you got an investment, I would guess, and like how did you get that
Yeah.
investment is probably through like determination, and you got to be just as determined to do like founder led sales, I guess. So that is a good
That's right.
counterpoint. I would agree.
That's right. So examples of AI. I think there's um, I'll share a couple specific examples. I went down kind of like a rabbit hole over the weekend, watching a bunch of Jeff Bezos talks, and so this is very top of mind for me. One of which was like a TED talk he gave in '99. He hasn't given many public talks, so it's interesting when he shares stuff. He did a recent interview a couple months ago that kind of triggered me to go back and watch his 1999 TED talk. I think it was somewhere around there. Anyway, he was talking about the dot-com bubble, and he says a lot of people give the analogy of it being a gold rush. And there's kind of this boom and then a bust. In the same way, the gold rush, right? There's the boom and bust cycle. And he was saying that's like, the dot-com bubble is often said to be similar. And his argument was like, it actually is more like electricity. And it's something that is going to touch everything. It's going to be in everything. And cloud computing at the time, he was like, he's basically making this argument that like, it's going to touch every single thing. And his recent interview, this was like a month ago, he's using that same analogy with AI now. And I think that's spot on. Again, like I just think it's like, okay, where do you use AI and go to market? It's like
everywhere.
Everywhere. I think
Yeah.
everywhere. I think it touches, I think every application will have AI in it to make it better, literally.
It's
And
like
so, yeah,
what products are using the cloud?
yeah,
Every SaaS product. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
And right, exactly. And like, I think it's spot on when people are like, you don't say, Common Room is like a cloud product. It's like, you don't need to say that anymore.
Yeah.
But in the early days, you would. That would be like something you say as like a differentiator or something, like a kind of a marketing thing. And so I think there's probably a world where in 5 years, it's not like an AI SDR. It's just like, yeah, it is your digital coworker. I actually think 11x, the messaging was like amazing that like you have digital coworkers. I think that future is going to happen. I think that's probably inevitable. And yeah, it's just like little agents that are autonomous that like you're kind of coordinating and working with. I think that probably will happen. So
Yeah.
anyway, I would like encourage people definitely just like start tinkering with this in work, in personal life. Like I'm trying to retrain my brain to be like, oh, there's a task that I need to do. It will take me 90 seconds to do it. I wonder if I can actually just outsource that to AI. And like maybe the first time it takes me 5 minutes, but then the next time it takes me 10 seconds instead of 90 seconds. And it's just helping me figure out what are the guardrails of AI? Like where is it good? Where is it not good? What model is better? Is Claude better for this, or is ChatGPT better for this, or whatever? I think that's also like the helpful thing for me as I actually like am doing things in my work life and personal life every day.
Yeah. Yeah. You touched on something which we actually didn't hit on too much, which is just like the agentic or the AI workforce side of things, which I think we were maybe being too negative, like, oh, AI SDRs don't work or something. But like AI does work, and I still do think we were in the very early innings. But there are like so many mundane tasks that I use AI for that SDRs and the whole entire go-to-market workforce can use already. It's things like doing account research. It's things like drafting an email, even if it's just using a foundational model. Like going from 0 to 1 there, or getting some inspiration there, is something that like you can totally use and totally augment your workforce with. It's just when you get to this like full automation thing, maybe we're not quite there yet. But there's like so many use cases, and I'm like barely scratching the surface of the use cases that people are using now in production, so to speak, in terms of like their workforce is using it.
Yeah, I mean the meeting summary, recap, action item
Yep.
workflow that's amazing. It's just like it's magic. If I had had that 10 years ago when I was selling,
Yeah.
like I would pay out of pocket a lot of money to have that. And now it's just like a little free bolt-on thing. It's
Take
insane.
all this, summarize it, put it in Salesforce, and then use that as a signal for a micro campaign down the future in the future.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
that stuff is all magic.
Yeah, one that I'm working on right now is like a close lost campaign. This is like a classic play every 90 days or whatever. Ideally it's just kind of an evergreen play running in the background. Just reach out to any close lost deal from 181 days ago and re-engage with them, either with the account owner from before or the current account owner, the person that talked to, you can kind of build out the logic in different ways. But now it's like, okay, look at the call recording.
Mm-hmm.
And here are 3 prompts. Tell me why they decided to talk to us when they did 9 months ago. Tell me what was the pain point they were trying to solve, and tell me why did they not move forward with us. And then it's like, okay, boom, boom, boom. Here are my first 3 sentences in my email that I can now go use in my outreach to go re-engage with them. That's just like that's a good example of something that like that would have taken 20 minutes as an SDR or AE to go research, to go look in that call recording, to go listen back to it or get the transcript and like try to figure it out. And now you can build this like thing. It's not even an agent, but it's just kind of based off of prompts to go run this play automatically. That's a magical thing. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're getting close to time. I was just like turn to a few of the audience questions
Let's do it.
in the next 5 minutes. So we got one from Malcolm here that is, what's the sentiment on AI cold calling? Got one the other day, made me curious to hear. Oh, interesting. What it sounded like, Malcolm. But I got one the other day, made me curious to hear what the future is there.
I'm curious your take. I mean, that one seems tricky from like a regulation standpoint. If that flip gets switched off, like I don't know what happens. I also think there's probably a world where there's like AI buyers, or people kind of like guarding your inbox or your phone as like a first line of defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like I don't know, maybe you could put in like certain things that you're in the market for, and like those calls get through, but otherwise they don't get through. I don't know. There's probably going to be something crazy
Yeah.
there. But
It gets me thinking to the point where it's like, if someone's doing that as a sale on the sales side of things, then like someone as a receiver of it's going to do it on their side, where it's going to be AIs talking to each other, and then it's like, maybe the world ends at that point.
I
But
mean, kind of AIs are talking to each other with Calendly, right? Like this is
yeah,
kind of like a step in that direction. Obviously, it's not actually AI. This is not an agent, but like we do kind of have logic talking to each other when you're doing that kind of Calendly interchange. And that used to be like really taboo to send a Calendly link. Like I remember, like
now, yeah,
it's like it was, oh, don't do that, it's disrespectful. Now it's like kind of disrespectful if you don't do that, in my opinion. So yeah.
I never adhered to that etiquette. I guess I was just like, how could this not be better?
Yeah.
I got an interesting one from an AI founder. So this is one I think pointed at you, Brandon. Was curious to take your take on what
Yeah.
you think the ideal positioning of an AI SDR should be. Selfishly, I want to hear that too.
Yeah. Well, one of my top 3 lessons from when I was kind of selling AI SDRs 10 years ago, whatever it was, 6 years ago, I don't know, was I think it's very threatening actually obviously to SDRs. It's actually more importantly, I think, threatening to SDR managers because they don't want headcount. I remember onboarding a customer, they'd already paid us. And on the kind of like the kickoff call, this SDR leader of like a very well-known, well-funded company at the time, she was like, I'm really anxious to see how this works, something along these lines. I'm excited to see how this works. I really don't think it's going to work, so let's see how it goes. And I was like, okay, so this is like, it's just kind of this light bulb moment of like, oh, you don't want this to succeed, because if it does, your head count of 30 SDRs goes down to 10.
Mm,
And so I think like AI SDR in general, personally, I think that's not good branding because I think people are kind of scared of that. And it's like replacing salespeople when in reality, it shouldn't actually replace them. It should kind of augment them and then in some case own a full end-to-end workflow. Um,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's where we're seeing our customers, which are a bit larger, like 100 plus employees. It's just like they have this AI
yeah,
SDR. They have this SDR team, and they want to
yeah,
make that team more effective because of all the reasons we stated earlier. Of just like it's harder and harder and harder out there for that team to hit their objectives. And so essentially like AI is giving them superpowers, whether it's from doing the research for them or like surfacing a micro campaign to them on a platter or suggesting, copy for them to use and modify. Like that is more of the use case versus like, I'm going to completely wipe out my team. And yeah, maybe you don't make as many hires because like that team is more productive, but like I haven't seen any cases where it's like, oh, we trialed this AI SDR, it completely beat our SDR team, and we're gonna just eliminate that team. Like I've
yeah.
never seen that happen.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll put I wrote a post if I can show my own post here. Sorry.
Of course, yeah.
How do I host in, where do I put it?
Uh,
I put it in chat or no?
yeah, put it
Oh,
in
maybe
chat.
not.
I thought you maybe had permissions to share, but I think I can do that. Hold on, let me do
Anyway,
this.
it's basically just if people want to read more, but I think I gave 3 reasons. I think it's psychological, rules of engagement, and then technological, which I think 2 and 3 are solvable. I think number 1 is kind of like the most important thing, which is kind of that psychological thing, which is what I was talking about. And yeah, threatening status. Do you want to augment or replace? Those are kind of the main 2 things, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Again, I'm like
yeah.
incredible. I like can't be more bullish on AI. It's more just like probably like the packaging and the messaging is the thing that I'm like not super bullish on currently with AI SDRs. Maybe people kind of choose to accept them, but yeah, I think it's like I think augmentation is probably a better way to think about it, and
Mhm.
probably more close to the truth. But again, it's tempting to say like it's an AI SDR, it'll book your meetings autonomously. Like that is an easy thing to sell and market.
Yeah, and again, we're still early. Like in two
Yeah,
years, it might be completely different. Yeah,
I think
I
it
mean,
will
it will
be.
be. Yeah, yeah.
I think it will be. By the way, I think like an AI SDR will be incredibly good in 2 or 3 years. Incredibly good.
You're not bought in that we're hitting a compute ceiling, I guess.
I have no idea. Smarter people than me have said they thought that, and then it didn't happen, or it hasn't happened yet. But
And they always
I
figure out how
have
to
no
like
idea.
shard and like get better use. I mean, that's what DeepSeek was, right?
Yeah,
Better
yeah,
usage out of the
exactly.
existing compute. So anyway,
Yeah, we'll see.
I know we have other questions, but I want to make sure that we give you some time back, Brendan. Then also, I think we can address a lot of these questions post. So we'll send them to you
Cool.
if they're directed at you. And just wanted to thank you again for joining and plug for the signal if we've shared some links, but definitely go subscribe to it if you're on this or watching this. And yeah, thanks so much. I'll let you go.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate you having me. One more thing.
Uh-huh.
Somebody asked a question. I think AI is very good at finding signals. And just to, to give you a plug, not even about your product, but I often reference the Google Sheet that you put together, that
Oh
the
yeah.
graphic of the signals that exist. I think my read is people don't yet know what signals are possible, or they just want like to get ideas sparked. And that's been a reference that I share very often with people. And then of course, Common Room, aka AI, does a very good job of automating this. Yeah, the second tab that's called Signals by Type infographic. That infographic is awesome. So anyway, thank you for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it. Always fun to jam with you. And see you
Likewise.
later.
I'll see you in the rumor mill of LinkedIn. So,
Sounds good.
all right. See you, Brendan.
Cheers.
All righty. Okay, so that was amazing conversation. I know I'm just talking to myself now, but really love to get Brendan's perspective on things. And then for the folks who are still on, I have like a few things in a demo of Common Room to share in the next 20 minutes. So appreciate you staying on for that, and I'll kind of share like what our like from that conversation what our perspective is, and like hopefully a better path forward for using AI for go to market. So let me fumble through my screen share real quick and get my speaker notes up, and we will start that off as soon as I do that, which is hopefully right now. Okay, so I'm going to go into slideshow mode, and then we will do turn on speaker notes. Oh, I need to go back into this. 1 second. Enter full screen. There we go. Okay. So I'm trying not to make this uh, too much slideware. I think the like demo part of it is of showing you how Common Room can do all this stuff is more compelling. So hopefully I can jam through these slides in the next like 5 to 10 minutes, and then we can do a bit of a demo at the end here. A lot of the stuff is echoed from our conversation just now with Brendan. It's just like the pipe gen landscape is changing quite a bit. There is a ton of confusion in the market, and rightfully so. There's all these vendors. I just took like a little GIF from this company we work with called Cold IQ that kind of like outlines all the different categories of AI for go to market, and then all the different players. And so like if you're here and you're like, wow, this is crazy, this is overwhelming, like my goal with this talk is to help you kind of put together some sort of framework for thinking about these things versus like saying Common Room is the best vendor. I'm definitely biased there, of course, but this kind of should hopefully will help shape your approach to like how to think about these things. Okay, we talked about this already in the talk, but just the problem with pipe gen in general is that we've had this diminishing returns over time. And so like back in this era with like SalesLoft and Outreach coming on the scene, this was very much like the predictable revenue sequencer timeline. And cold email reply rates were a lot higher. I think this is not just like a specific cold email, but like on the like sequence in general, this is like pretty high reply rates. But fast forward to a time when there is, just ChatGPT alone, 3.0 or 3.5 or whatever was the big one. Just having the ability to say like, write me an email, made things even a lot, made the volume go up and maybe the efficacy go down, but it was just like a huge tool for these teams. And then also now with AI SDRs, that noise is becoming more and more and more apparent. And so it's flooding people's inboxes and they're not responding. We already talked about this throughout the whole entire talk. So with Brendan, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. And then this is a bit hyperbolic. AI SDRs don't work. I think there's ways that they can work, but this is pretty telling survey, I think, from Jason Lumpkin from SaaStr, is that 83% of people who have not closed a deal from an AI SDR yet. So I'm curious to see who these other people are, but yeah, it's seeming like this is not quite ready for prime time yet. And then so I wanted to touch on my hypothesis for why they don't work, a little bit more beyond like what we talked about in the chat, the Q&A with Brendan. And so my hypothesis is just like that they are scraping this public data that's essentially like available, like someone's name, their title, their alma mater, where they work, stuff like that. It's pretty surface level, it's commoditized. And what happens when you get that is you get like a pretty good email. Like if you look at this email at first glance, it's like pretty impressive. That it could be written by an AI SDR, and this would be personalized per person. But like these are the types of emails that don't stand out because it's essentially just making an observation. A lot of the copy tends to be what's in it for me versus like how I can help with this pain point, because we don't have the pain point of the user really from this data. It's just data that's public. And then it's, some sort of catering to, something personal that they found, like the alma mater or something like that. So these emails, I'm sure you've been a recipient of them, and they don't work super well. And they end up just becoming like this glorified spam cannon, which is, I of course used Midjourney to create some graphics for this talk. Okay, so if this is a spam cannon, this is not good. What does good look like, and can we like reverse engineer our way into something like this? So this is an example that I've pulled, and um, it's essentially like what instead of having an observation or noticing something that's happening, or that's very much at the surface level, it's going down to understand like the actual problems and pain points at this account, and it's showing that that person did homework to understand those pain points. And so this references a TechCrunch article expanding offices into a certain region. Like this is a signal that should be, an input for the AI SDR to use. It's looking at the open roles, and then it's providing a really quality resource that matches this pain point that this person has, like a GDPR checklist if they're expanding to this region. So like the question remains is like, okay, how do we get to this like high quality email, and can an AI SDR at least get us like 90% of the way there, or get us close to this, so we can automate it eventually in the future. Okay, so this type of quality email, and the reason why people don't do it, or why you don't see them all the time, is because it's hard. And I'm actually not a Harry Potter kid, but I really love this quote from shoot, I think the name is Dumbledore. I could be completely wrong. But the wizard from Harry Potter said, you know, difficult times lay ahead. The choice between what is right and what is we almost make the choice between what's right and what is easy. And what is right is oftentimes hard. And so the reason why it's hard, we've surveyed and found this from a lot of our customers, is that they have trouble with data foundations. For example, like they have tons of different products and tools that their teams are using. This data is siloed. It's hard to get that data into the hands of an LLM to train on, and SDRs and teams are just hopping through a bunch of tabs and a bunch of different tools to try and get context to get to that high quality personal email. There's also like the reps that are doing it right. It's like tribal knowledge that exists within that specific rep, and they're not scaling and bringing that to the rest of the team. We've seen this happen a bunch, specifically on the AI messaging. Is that again, it's a lot of data that is public and commoditized, that this LMs are being trained on. And so not only did the emails and messages come out as kind of like, not pattern disrupting, not interesting, not a compelling reason to follow up or to reply to them. Also, like it's hard for a rep to know how to prompt an AI the right way, or an agent the right way, to get the quality email out of it. And then the last thing is, a lot of teams, especially on the technical side, are building all this from scratch, and there's a bunch of like hidden costs included with that. I would argue that your engineering team should be spending time building the product and making your product better, versus trying to figure out how to like build their own signal-based provider, agentic AI SDR, et cetera. Like this is something that a lot of teams tend to go towards because they want their own bespoke thing, but it ends up hindering progress in the long run. Okay, so now just quickly jumping into Common Room before I jump into the demo, and how we kind of like have thought through all these things. The first is foundations in AI for go-to-market. So what our product does is we capture signals agentically, and also through built-in native integrations from like any corner of the public internet, things like your website visits, social engagement, GitHub activity. And then we have an agent that will go seek things out like primary competitors, earnings reports, and we also have data like this. So it's essentially like pulling in all of those meaningful signals that go beyond that surface level commoditized data and pulling it into one place. And we then allow and surface that and package it up into different plays that a team can run. We call it orchestration. It's essentially like combining like, okay, Brendan used in his example, close last play. It's like, okay, can we pull in a signal from a Salesforce field, turn that into like a client timing close loss play and service that up to reps, and then provide on this last mile here the copy or the suggestions of like how to take action on that. And all of this stuff is enhanced by AI and our agents so that an SDR or a rep can execute on this without having to like go through all these like really tedious motions. And so I was going to cover some of this stuff, but I'm actually now going to just jump right into a demo since we only have 10 minutes left, and I want to go pretty quick here. So the first thing I'm going to do is jump into this demo instance here. I'm going to refresh just so it's hopefully all loaded and locked and loaded. And if I click into one of these accounts here, this is within this workspace, there's 170,000 accounts. If I click into one of these accounts, you'll see that we have this overview of what's going on at this account. We know like and these are because we're pulling in all these signals and also unifying those signals across the different people within that account. And you can see here that we are having our product do some AI research on behalf of the reps. So this is essentially like taking out that tedious part of like of someone going into their target account and trying to find things like hiring trends, their primary competitors, like all of these different things are data that can be fetched and captured and returned with an agent, so that the rep doesn't have to do this manual work. They can just start from the get-go of like, oh, here's my account plan and here's how I'm going to get into this account. And the really great thing about this is because it's AI doing it, it can be super fast and easy. So I'm going to show you how to do that within one account. So this we showed for Vercel, and if I click into, hopefully if I demo in real time here, it's not going to break. If I go into Confluent, we'll see that there is not any AI research that's being done right now. So if I click in here, what's going on is our agent is going out and finding and capturing that signal. So I wanted to go show like what it looks like when it's or how that signal is being fetched and returned. So to do that, I'm just going to go back into our admin here, and I'm going to click on Rumi AI, which is our what we call our agent, and specifically on this capture feature. This is going and capturing bespoke signals and returning them at the account level for us. And so if I go into how these signals are being pulled, if I look at this primary competitors one, it's pretty simple. It's just saying like, go find me the organization name, find me a list of competitors, and provide a brief summary of what those competitors are doing. Great. And then we also are combining this returned research primary competitors, and you can kind of like daisy chain and build upon that to come up with different signals and different research that's captured that's really bespoke to like how you run your go-to-market motion. And so if I go back here, you can see that there is negative, I'm going to capture here, and then negative competitor reviews. So this is what I mean of like pulling signal on top of signal or finding research on top of research. We can find that we're saying, okay, go reference this primary competitors that we looked at previously, and then find me negative reviews from each of those competitors, and maybe I want to like use that for personalization. Okay, so if I go back to the app now, we can now see that in that however long I was talking, maybe a minute or two, that we have now filled in all the blanks of Confluence, and then so now as a rep, like this is all work that's done for me. What used to take me maybe half an hour is now taking me 60 seconds. Okay, and so from here, the next thing we want to do is then build one of those micro campaigns using signal that we know about this account or different contexts at the account to then personalize an outbound email. This is kind of like where the AI SDR portion of Common Room comes into play. And so for that, I'm going to turn to this other workspace, and I'm going to go to organizations here and say I want to run this micro campaign. I've already done this before, so I'm cheating a little bit. I want to run a micro campaign that is targeting accounts that are hiring for go-to-market engineers. So if I click add filter here, I can say title. And essentially, this gives me a big menu of different signals that are available at the account level or even the contact level. I'm going to click add filter and do title here and say job listing title contains go-to-market engineer, engineer, and say anything that contains that. And now we have 28 organizations who are hiring for a go-to-market engineer. So this is like a signal of play that we can run and say like, okay, we know you're hiring for a go-to-market engineer. That must mean that that go-to-market engineer is going to help out the rest of the sales team. So like, let's craft a personalized message to the right stakeholder at these accounts. And so I can save this and create a new segment. The segment would be our micro campaign. I've already done that, and that is now here on my home screen here. And you can see here, actually, this is like a nice feature of Common Room that we have all these different plays that are executable both on the contact level and the account level. This is one, for example, of pricing page visits from economic buyers in the last 28 days. But we have this one here that I just created. And so these are those 27 accounts who are hiring for a go-to-market engineer. And if I click on user evidence, I'm going to find my friend. You can see we already have the account research here. And we also have things like their hiring trends and like risk analysis, different types of things that we can use to power that personalized message on top of the signals that we're collecting about this account. If I click on contacts here, I can find my friend Mark Huber, and I can say draft an AI message. And I know I'm pushing on 3 minutes here, so I'm going a little bit fast. And I'm going to say warm intro, hiring trends, warm intro. And so this will then generate a message for me that's using these bespoke inputs that are not at the surface level. So it says, saw you're hiring for a go-to-market engineer at user evidence. We are referencing like that person can get some quick wins, referencing their 11-person sales team. This is a data that we have about this account. Check out this research for 100 signals. That's the one that we shared in the chat. And then we reference like their competitors here. Influitive is taking advantage of XYZ. Like this is a play for you to get market share from one of your competitors. So this is generated by AI, and I would say it's pretty close to these good messages that I referenced here. And so to get to this quality of fidelity, you need these inputs about the account and maybe about Mark to personalize this email, and so our outbound message. And so to do that, the last thing I wanted to show here is that we have this activate tab, which is generating these personalized emails. And if I click into that warm intro one for hiring, hopefully I can find it here. Yeah. You can see here the prompts that we're using is referencing all of these different data points, these inputs of high quality data that we need to get to that level of personalization. So we're referencing primary competitors. We're referencing fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which is also a conglomeration of other signals we know about that account. We're referencing that account's business model. And this is the quality the quality inputs that are required, at least in this day and age, for an AI SDR to work well. And yeah, that is I have a minute left. I'm happy to like stay on and answer any questions that people have. But that is most of the demo that I wanted to go show. The last thing I wanted to say actually is that anyone who is attending this webinar it can get a 90-day free trial of Common Room. We usually offer 14 days, but if you reference this webinar or myself or Brendan as you sign up, you'll get 90 days free of Common Room, and then you'll also get 5,000 credits for free to use this AI product. We call it Roomy AI. So definitely sign up now. And then I'm talking about this a lot and showing demos and trying to pave the path for education here on LinkedIn. So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, this is my handle. And I know we're at time, so thanks everyone for joining, and I appreciate you staying for the whole hour.